No, we're not going to be real quiet. Hey, everybody, Final Cut Pro Radio TV Live. Let's see.
Sorry.
Let's see if I can do this right. To my Serena Catania, I've got this down. Brad Olson and Patrick Southern. I've been practicing. So today we're celebrating Final Cut Pro's birthday because it's June 21st in Australia right now.
Which, as we all know, that's where they came up with the idea for Final Cut Pro 10 was in Australia.
Well, it seems like there's a lot of Final Cut Pro editors over there. Some of our
Randy
friends.
was scuba diving or something in the coral reefs when he came up with the idea for Final Cut Pro 10. So that's why we're celebrating based off Australia time, right?
Well,
did you win trivia at the Creative Con?
No, we lost by like a couple points, and one of the reasons why is because I got mixed up between the years 2007 and 2009. Turns out the last time Apple had a booth at NAB was in 2007 with the unveiling of Final Cut Studio 2, and for some reason I had 2009 stuck in my head, which was totally wrong. But it was so loud and confusing in there.
It was, absolutely. So was that where the Black Magic booth is now? People keep saying that's where Apple had their booth at NAB.
In Australia? No.
In Australia. Yeah.
Oh,
At the front of the South Hall.
You're talking about, yeah.
I wasn't there.
No, I was asking him about the creative, what you call it, the Creative Summit when we had the trivia contest.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, as far as the booth, I heard that. I don't know. I heard Black Magic took over, but they also kind of grew when Red left as well. They ate that space up. So
yeah, so they're enormous now, like just insanely huge.
No, they absolutely are.
They will take over the South floor by the year 2030.
It'll just all be Black Magic.
Yeah.
In fact, it won't even be NAB anymore. It'll just be called the Black Magic Show.
and there won't be any other companies. It'll all be Black Magic.
That's right.
They will have bought everyone.
They will be the Disney of camera and broadcast companies.
We'll see.
So when I share these live streams to different places, every once in a while I'll make a mistake and I'll post it something that doesn't belong specifically, and I get, "What are you posting that here for?" "I'm sorry, it was a mistake. I didn't mean to do that."
Did you post it to the Veterinary Society of South Carolina or something?
Well, who did I have on that we were talking about Black Magic stuff? Oh, it's Tony Gallardo. So I posted it to the Black Magic group. But we talked mostly about Final Cut Pro. I figured they might get the tie-in since he was at, NAB representing Black Magic. They didn't get it. That kind of stuff.
Well, last time I was on with Tony, we talked quite a bit about Resolve.
Right. Well, that's why I figured that I would post it there, but they didn't. For some reason, they were angry. "What are you posting that here for?" I don't know. Thought I'd do it.
People are overwhelmed with internet, social media, emails, messages, text messages,
live streams.
No, Richard, you're doing well with this live stream.
Well, I enjoy it. That's the main thing. If I didn't like it, I mean, look, I'm not selling anything. I'm not selling anything, so I'm just doing what I like. So I like, look at these guests that I have today. The best of the best, right?
Yeah. Let's be honest, Richard. You just want to hang out with your friends online.
Of course. That's exactly what I want to do. That's exactly what I want to do. Well,
we're going to call it Richard Taylor and Friends.
I had Chris Fenwick on last Friday. I texted him and said, "Hey."
That was fun.
It was, of course it was.
I watched that one. That's fun. That was fun.
Yeah.
Especially because he's not doing the grill much anymore these days, so it's fun to hear from Chris every once in a while.
Right.
Yeah,
so
I want to see him do like a woodworking podcast. Anyway.
Yeah.
Last time I was on the phone with Chris, when I hung up, I went to grill some steaks, and then I realized we should have been doing a live stream and done an actual Final Cut grill with me grilling.
Oh, that's awesome.
That would have been pretty good.
Yeah.
Grill.
I had Chris on OWC Radio a couple weeks ago.
Oh.
Did you?
Yeah. He's awesome. He's a great guy.
Yep. Except he was driving. I didn't know he was driving until we went on live. I said,
"Chris, made it more entertaining."
Well, he made it more challenging. I kept saying, Chris, pay attention to your driving. Don't look at the camera. We can see you. Just talk. But
we don't want you getting into a car wreck on the podcast.
Exactly.
Oh,
So he made it back, and then we stopped the podcast. Then I get to see a little bit of his chalet out there, the little place he has. He was showing me stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
So do we want to talk a little bit about Final Cut? Go ahead.
We do. Well, let's talk about this gigantic BFJ.
The
big
BFJ.
Big effing jellyfish.
I heard it's not real.
Well, they wanted something to go with the new Mac Pro, right?
It's a fable made to scare children.
It's the bigger, faster jellyfishes.
Is that what it is?
The bigger, faster jellyfish.
I bet that's not how you came up with the name.
Now, come on, Brad. Of course we started with an acronym and worked backwards. Anyway.
Yes. This thing is gigantic.
It is.
I got it up on the screen right now, the page.
60 drives, 60 spinning drives. We've got, what is it, a 30 terabyte SSD pool?
It says 30 plus terabyte flash, yes.
30 plus terabyte flash. And
100 gigabit Ethernet.
That's right, 100 gig backbone for the jellyfish. And, a lot more storage capacity out the gate, almost a petabyte raw as one of our larger configurations. And it is aimed largely at, we've got a number of broadcast customers around the world. And instead of, giving them the option of buying like 6 or 7 jellyfish racks, we were like, maybe we just make a single unit that can power what they need to do.
Sure.
So that's kind of where the BFJ comes along. You might have remembered me occasionally talking about ShareStation. This is kind of like between the ShareStation and the Jellyfish line. The same great software, still meant to be easy to use, but it's also aimed at teams that do have bigger needs in terms of the number of users, or maybe they're trying to do high-end 8K VFX for some reason, because 8K mastering happens all the time.
Okay.
It should happen more often. So this is for those people. And like you said, this would go great with a production house that happens to have a Mac Pro, the new Mac Pro. So this and the new Mac Pro are going to be great for colorists, for VFX artists. If you're in Final Cut Pro 10, it's going to be more than what you need by a decent amount. You're more than fine on a tower or a rack, even if you're doing 8K. So I would say this is more for people who are doing image sequences or just high volume of users on the same machine.
Like companies that are developing games.
Yeah. Or like as a customer that comes to mind, VGTV in Norway. They've got like 200 different users, and they have a share station in house. But we developed this so that you don't necessarily have to get a super high custom, not super high end, but you don't have to get like this super custom build to be able to get up and running. We've already got some pre-configured options that allow you to get going off the bat, as opposed to spending weeks trying to figure out, okay, how many ports do we need, how many sticks of RAM do we need. We've already got some preset options for people. So this is for large teams. Anyway,
so speaking of the Mac Pro,
yeah,
so I got a 64-bit Mac desktop. Look at this beauty. If you guys see it, look at all those PCIe ports. Maybe you can't see it.
What are we looking at?
Oh, maybe you can't see it. You're looking at a Power Mac G5, 64-bit desktop computer. It's gorgeous.
The Power Mac G5.
Yeah, it has all those PCIe slots. They're fantastic. All those ports and everything.
Are you pulling our leg? No,
of course.
There it is.
Can you see it?
I can't see it. It doesn't exist. No.
Are you sharing your screen, Richard?
No, I was just doing
Just pulling our leg.
I've talked about this before when people were talking about
Okay,
the
now
60
I can see it.
the 64-bit transition. That people were saying, oh, the 64-bit transition. This is how far back the 64-bit transition went to the Power Mac G5 of a 64-bit machine.
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time, but that thing is gorgeous. I love that thing. I love those cheese graters.
I think I have one of those old ones, two of those old ones in my garage. Should I pull them out?
Well, they holding up your car when you change the oil?
Yeah, just about. Do you hate to throw away old computers?
Yes.
I do too.
I trade them in for money before they're worthless.
Well, speaking of that, yesterday I got a 2019 Power Mac. Not a Power Mac. MacBook Pro. 2019
MacBook Pro.
MacBook Pro, because now I'll be selling my 2016. Yeah.
You got the 8-core?
Absolutely. I got the 8-core. So far, I'm really, I've had it for one day, but I'm really liking it.
I'm going to wait and see next year if they've got the like a new 16 or 17-inch MacBook Pro coming out. That's the rumor.
Yeah.
I'll trade in my computer for that.
Well, I don't personally don't want one because I'm not using it that much. I use my iMac much more. But I use that sometimes, and I just, like you said, I wanted to get rid of it before the value was down to the floor.
Yep.
What do you guys do for a monitor when you're on your laptops and you're traveling? That's a problem for me. I ran into it this morning, actually. All I was trying to do was some graphics on Photoshop even, and the screen, the space is just so small, and the iPad is also small.
If you're in a hotel, bring a little HDMI adapter and hook it up to your TV.
I made myself a note. Take an HDMI cable.
And an adapter, a dongle adapter.
Yeah. We ran into that last night. We were presenting at the Premiere Pro group here in San Diego.
How'd that go?
People are so excited about that. It's unbelievable. Yeah, I'm really happy for Philip and Greg with I don't know, Brad, if you knew the new builder works with Premiere Pro.
Yeah, and for some reason I don't really care, but I'm happy for you guys.
On Final Cut. Well, it's really nice to be able to help a broad spectrum of people that need it. And Premiere Pro doesn't have anything comparable, and there's no other solution that really quite does that, right, Patrick? I mean, it's really pretty awesome. Yeah. So Philip did a great job. We had a lot of questions, and I think it was fun. But our first room had an old projector running on VGA.
Whoa.
And I had brought converters and cables, but we just could not get it to work, even though we had the converter for the mini display port to the VGA and VGA to the projector. Could not get it to work, so we had to move to a different room. I think it might have had something to do with it was aliens. Just an awful projector. Yeah, there were aliens in the room.
Or gremlins.
Well, here's the one request we all have. It's okay that Lumberjack works with Premiere. Just don't bring those people to the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. Okay.
No, and also
unless they can rebuild Armadillo Willies.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That thing is still dead. I checked it. It says permanently closed.
Lumberjack still works with Final Cut. Builder works with Premiere or Final Cut.
Oh, okay.
So
okay. Sorry.
Dead as all those. This is dead as all those armadillos in Florida.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
It's still closed.
Yeah.
Armadillos. That's tragic.
Yeah, last year.
Yeah.
Well.
Hey,
exciting.
on another note, we got a new video out today about creating dailies for 8K cameras.
Is it on YouTube?
I was gonna watch that one.
It's on the YouTube.
I saw Peter share a link. I was gonna watch that one, but I was still.
It's on your YouTube channel. So, did you use Kino? You used Kino for that, I presume, right?
Yeah, we used a mix of Kino, Sync and Link, Hedge, Frame.io, and the batch export feature in Final Cut Pro, which thank God they finally included. So we
Repeat that again, Patrick. What did you use?
So on the feature film I'm working on, as you can see, we've got the feature laid
There
out.
you go.
We used Hedge to copy the cards off to the Jellyfish and to a backup RAID. And then we used Kino to pull the proxies from the Red camera into a separate folder. And then we used Sync and Link to batch sync all of the audio. We did have this thing called the UltraSync 1 that we had connected to each camera and to our audio device. And it was like 200 or 300 a piece for just to purchase those, but you can rent them for a little bit less. And then after batch syncing everything, we exported, did a batch export using a custom compressor preset that reduced the file size so that when it went up to Frame.io, we didn't eat up all of our Frame.io storage. So we've got every shot from the movie is up in Frame.io, so the director and the DP and wardrobe can review and see how things looked on camera, review back to a couple of days ago and see what shirt were they wearing or what was the performance like. And it's all thanks to a suite of pretty awesome tools. So
that's great.
Are you using shot notes? I didn't hear that on the list.
We didn't have a script supervisor. So
there you go.
Yeah. If we had a script supervisor, the last one I did with Vince, the director on this movie, we did have a script supervisor, and she was using Scripty, and we were able to get her Scripty notes into Final Cut using shot notes. So because we don't have a script supervisor, we're not doing that. But if we did have a script supervisor, we would be using Shot Notes X.
We're almost wrapping. It's a short shoot feature. We're wrapping this Saturday, but I've been editing as we shoot, similar to what you're doing. It's 5K Gemini instead of 8K, but same like 2K proxy workflow. I think that Kino tip is super helpful because I was wondering how to get the proxies out quickly of the same folder. But I do have the shot notes thing happening, which is wonderful. I heard a certain company took over that piece of software and is managing it.
I think so. I think LumaForge did, right?
We absolutely did. Yeah.
Are there any plans to continue supporting it or upgrading? I feel like I have some feedback for it, but I'll have to write it down and get back to you.
Look, there are all sorts of ideas, but it comes down to, do we have the ability to spend time on the development there, because there are other things that we're also developing. And so there are plans to do something with shot notes, but when those will hit the world, that's yet to be seen. So I'm not going to make any promises. I'm not going to.
Well, for people who don't know, it's super handy because you can get you can get keywords and notes and all your clips batch renamed instantly. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I'm a really big fan. So
can I ask you guys, what cameras are you using to shoot?
Personally, or
you're using the Red, Patrick, right? You're shooting on Red.
Well, the feature film was the Red Helium, and internally we're using the Red Ravens and the Blackmagic Ursa Mini Pro from time to time. And Brad, what are you using?
So this film is being primarily shot on the Red Gemini, which is their special Elon Musk made-to-order Mars camera.
Right.
And it shoots 5K, if I didn't say that already. And then also occasionally there's a B cam that is a Scarlett W that can also shoot 5K. It's weird. It kind of half does the IPP2 workflow. Kind of weird. Anyway, and then every once in a while they'll whip out an A7S that they'll shoot like S-Log 4K on. But
when you say it half does IPP2, does that mean you can shoot in Log 3G10 and red wide gamut RGB, but you can't do LUTs? Is that what that is?
So you have to custom put in the LUTs. I don't know why. So like the upgraded firmware acknowledges that the old red gamma and stuff is legacy, but it doesn't have that drop down to IPP2. So then you have
so you
to,
can't get the IPP2 controls. You have to apply a LUT, a creative LUT. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. So you can
Wow.
do log 3G10, and you can do the red wide color RGB, and then you custom load a LUT in instead of the IPP2 menu. It's on the Scarlett W because I guess it's not DSMC2 or whatever the
Right.
newer.
There's a certain power of brain that you need to be able to process that concurrently.
Yeah. So there's a way to hack it, and that's why I say it's half. And honestly, it makes no difference once you get it onto the computer, if you've loaded up with that. So yeah, hey, Bill's.
I hear Bill Davis logging in.
I hear him.
Yeah, here, Bill. Don't see
Party
Bill.
Central's on the line.
So
Bill, you're.
You'll meet us over there.
So I don't know
He
if
might
we.
not know.
There he is.
There he
Hey,
is.
look,
Hey, somebody's got an Atomos and it looks like a C300 Mark II.
It
Since
is.
we're
What
talking
is
Pro
that?
lady
That is
stuff.
the.
here in the middle of an event.
Well, this is perfect because we were just talking about codecs and stuff.
Well, there you go. We're having an interesting day out here at a street fair in beautiful San Diego. Except that I'm really upset because there's not much blue sky over there, and the blue sky is starting to come out over there, and I'm in the wrong direction.
Oh no.
So what's everybody been talking about?
You. No.
all kinds of stuff.
We
Well,
were
we're-
talking about legacy red cameras versus newer red cameras and
So-
the IPP2 workflow. It's super
I'm going to
sexy.
have to go back to
Wonderful
work here in a
conversation.
second, but since it's an anniversary show, I just wanted to say
Yeah.
happy anniversary to everybody. This
Yay.
has been an amazing
Yay.
trek over the course of the last 8+ years.
Well, yeah, we especially want to say congratulations to the Final Cut Pro team over there,
Yeah, absolutely.
over there at Apple. I mean,
Absolutely.
we all
Absolutely.
appreciate all the work that they've done. 8
I know
years.
I was just about to say the amount of distance we have come since the first day they released it has been utterly unbelievable. And having sat in my studio for the last, I guess, about week and graded the stuff off of this rig, this is astonishingly different than what I used to be able to shoot back in the early days. I mean, it's just an amazing change.
Bill, are you
So what
related to
is that
Harrison
thing-
Ford?
I'm sorry, what?
Are you related to Harrison Ford?
No, I'm not, but I got to get back to work. Producer's calling, so I'm out of here.
Okay,
Bye.
thanks. There,
Bye, Bill.
everybody.
there you go. Now Brad's doing it.
That's the fedora.
Yeah, exactly.
Fedora
I love
pictures.
It. Oh my gosh. What do you guys
It's a little
you guys
small.
Well,
So-
you know.
are
hold
you
on.
grading with Resolve
there we
on
go.
all these projects?
Wait a minute, Brad. Put it back on. I'll put you on solo there.
There you go.
Let me
Woohoo.
see. Where are you? Wait a minute. There you go. There you go. Very handsome.
Putting the headphones back on. All right.
Okay.
Sorry. Grading and Resolve something.
Well, let's talk.
Serena
Let's
asking.
talk about Final
the
Cut
birthday
Pro.
Party.
Yeah, let's talk about Final Cut Pro.
Final Cut Pro.
10.
Didn't they stop
So-
making that in 2011?
Where
Yeah,
were
they'll
where
make
was
it.
everybody 8 years ago? I mean, did everybody here
I-
download it the first day or not?
Okay, so I had just picked up my brand new 2011 MacBook Pro, first Apple device with Thunderbolt 1, and I went to my bedroom, I opened up the computer, and then I saw that Final Cut Pro 10 was available on the App Store on June 21st, 2011. That's where I
Okay.
was. I downloaded it, and then I tried to open up a Final Cut 7 project in it. That didn't work.
No, that did not work.
Then I went online, and all the news articles were interesting, and the forums were, quite active.
Where is
On
it
that
kind of like
day.
Mac Pros happening now?
It was it was very intense.
It was.
I had to close my laptop and walk away for a while and have a little cry in the corner. Anyway, but it was fun. It was exciting for me to see the new version of Final Cut Pro 10, and I'm glad that I stuck with it.
What about you, Patrick? Did you download it the first day, on June 21st when it came out?
No.
Second day?
I don't remember exactly the day. I was working at an Apple store, and so we had it there in the store, and so the impetus to have it on my own personal computer was a little bit less. So we got it in store immediately, obviously, because
Sure.
it's the Apple store. But the place I was when it was announced was in the back room. So we used to huddle around as many people as possible at a time around a computer in the back office, and we'd watch live streams of the Apple keynotes. We'd watch live streams of the Super Meet when it wasn't officially being streamed, but
Right.
somebody
That's
in the
right.
audience was
Sure.
doing whatever they were doing. So that's kind of how we heard about it. Was from the Super Meet. It's kind of crazy that in Oklahoma, back in 2000, was that 2011?
Mhm.
We were in a back office at an Apple store watching Michael Horton's Super Meet to be able to find out about Final Cut Pro. I had no intention of ever getting into the community the way that I am now.
Right.
So this, knowing you guys is kind of like a little bit of a, knowing you guys, knowing Michael and this entire community, I never thought that I'd be that lucky, but here we all are. We're lucky enough to have each other. It's pretty great.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we've become friends over Final Cut Pro.
It's very true.
Actually, that's true. I was in the Super Meet when they did that demonstration,
Oh, were you?
and it was thunderous. This is the most amazing thing to me. Over the years, I think about it once in a while. Everyone was so excited and hollering and screaming and they jumped up and they gave it a standing ovation. And then the next day, it's like, excuse me, when did that mass murder happen? It was odd. It just didn't match what was actually in the room when they, and all the talk about the magnetic timeline and everything. But being in that room was, I don't know, technologically one of the milestones in my life. It was pretty awesome. And the energy was amazing. Everyone was so positive.
When did
And
you
then-
download Final Cut Pro 10 for the
Well, it
first
took
time?
me a while because I was in the middle of projects that were using Final Cut 7, and Final Cut 10 was a different language, and I was
Sure.
a little bit afraid. So it probably took me, I hate to say this, probably took me almost a year before I really did the switch.
Yeah,
And
a lot of people waited for it.
yeah,
Now-
but it was worth it.
When
Yeah,
I was
one of
working
the-
I was
go ahead.
working at the National Archives up on the fifth floor actually, and I had everything in Final Cut Pro 7, everything up to that point in Final Cut Pro 7 sequences. But I downloaded it immediately when it came out, and anything at all that I could do with Final Cut Pro 10, I did. It's simple things. Obviously, we couldn't do a lot of things, and I couldn't transfer legacy products. But here's the thing. Everybody was starting from ground zero at that point. So I didn't want to wait. I just wanted to jump in, and anything at all that I could, do, I started doing in Final Cut Pro 10 because it isn't like you have a background in Final Cut Pro 7 and, you're already that far ahead in 10. Nope, you're right back to zero, right back to the beginning. And here's something you may or may not know. You guys remember kenstone.net?
Yes.
So on May 16th, 2011, I wrote the very first Final Cut Pro article for kenstone.net. And it was
I gotta find that.
It was I have it linked on FCPX.tv. It's
Cool.
all from the bootleg videos from LACPUG. I went through and piece by piece and went through thing by thing and just said, well, what is this? What is this? How is this going to work? And one of the things that I questioned was how they got the Final Cut Pro 7 sequence into Final Cut Pro 10, because nobody said how they did that. They must have done it did they do it by hand? Did they rebuild it by hand? Do you guys know?
Possibly. Yeah, I don't know how much to say.
Well,
I
I questioned that right from the beginning. How did they get that 7 timeline?
The thing that we all learned day one, because that was a bit misleading, and that's what goes back to my thing of I thought I could open up my 7 project into 10 because they showed a 7 project and then a 10 project side by
Yes.
side.
Yes.
And And what I learned is no, you could not. They had nothing available to the public to be able to do that. But shortly after that, there was a certain little company that Serena knows about.
Philip Hodges.
That released a tool that lets you get via XML your project into 10, albeit with a lot of a lot of things didn't translate over.
A lot of prep.
A lot of prep.
Right.
The other thing to note about that is that also what didn't work until 10.0.1 in September when they released an XML for Final Cut Pro 10. Because prior to that, I mean, without getting into the whole like frustration and anger and some of the misinformation that was being spread about 2011, I do find it interesting to look back about on how far we've come with Final Cut Pro 10, and being somebody who used it day one, there were things that were, there was little issues and things that are just, it's interesting to see how far, again, it's interesting in the development. For example, one bug in the first version of Final Cut Pro 10 is when you set your font and then you closed your Final Cut and you came back to your project, the fonts would reset in Final Cut 10.0.0. Do you remember that, Richard? That was a bug in the very first one.
Well, think about 10.0 had 9 updates.
Yeah. And then there's another funny thing is you could not, when you selected an in and out point, and I don't remember how long this one lasted, but when you selected an in and out point in the browser on a clip, when you selected a new clip, it would not save the selection of the previous clip.
Right. So that came later. Yep.
So you'd have to either keyword or favorite to save your selections on your clips because it would just reset every time. So there's little gotchas like that you kind of had to like work around. Of course, this lasted through the whole up until 10.1, but projects and events were separate. There was event libraries and there were project libraries.
Right.
And I still we've talked about this many times. I missed the little skimmer across a project.
The project library at the bottom of the screen, absolutely, where the timeline was.
That was something I kind of missed when we went to libraries, and then you have a static thumbnail that you can't do anything with.
I think that'll come back. I think they'll be able to skim project at some point. I mean, you can skim them in the share window.
Yeah.
So they're obviously skimmable, and you can skim a compound clip in the browser, and you can skim a multicam clip. You just, for some reason, can't skim a project yet. I'm sure that's coming, though. So we have a comment in the chat. William Jones says, I downloaded it the first day and now editing my first long-form doc on it.
Yeah.
And he also says, made my editor, who uses Avid and a little Premiere, but mostly Avid, use it for the first time. Now she's working on other projects, and she's missing Final Cut Pro 10. So.
That's awesome.
Yes. So when I joined the National Archives, they had Avid on a PC, double whammy.
Ooh!
And when I went for my interview, I remember this downstairs in the library, and the guy said, "Well, we have Avid." I said, "That's fine. I can learn Avid." I said, "There's nothing on my resume about Avid, so you brought me in here for a reason." And I said, "I have no problem learning Avid." I said, I know how to edit, so it's not a problem. So I downloaded PDFs, and I had to book tons of PDFs to learn how to do things, and I figured it out. And then the PC started crapping out. So I went downstairs to the projection room where we had a G5 and Final Cut Pro 7 on it, or whatever version it was, and I just talked the manager to let me bring that upstairs. And then what I did was I would go home on weekends and at night, and I would do these projects on Final Cut Pro 7 at my house. And I'd bring them back in, and the clients would say, wow, we really, really like that. Did you do it on the Avid? And I'd go, mm-hmm. But I didn't. I was doing it at home on Final Cut Pro 7, and finally they let me get Final Cut Pro up there. So.
Oh my goodness!
But I remember the day it came out. I was. I remember the day it came out. I downloaded it, but like I said, obviously you couldn't use it on a lot of stuff, and I had a lot of projects in the can that I couldn't use it on. So I kept using it as much as I can. So you guys, Brad and I did it the first day. Patrick and Serena were followers 7 months to a year later, plus or minus.
The first thing I edited in Final Cut Pro 10, I took some iPhone footage and I just clipped it together and put it to music. And I remember having to wrap my head around the idea that, where is the music clipped to? And if I add frames, do I need to take away frames? And do you put the music in the primary storyline if you're cutting to music? There's a lot of those ideas that I was trying to wrap my head around. And it probably took 2 or 3 months until I felt comfortable with the magnetic timeline. And that was partly because I kept having to edit in 7. But I remember there was a moment when I went back to editing in 7, and after I got used to the magnetic timeline and trimming in there, that I started doing a lot more ripple editing and slips and slides and things that I wasn't originally as comfortable with in 7, just because of the way the interface worked.
Sure.
And I wasn't sure. In 7, I wasn't sure what the feedback was trying to tell me when I was doing like a ripple edit or something. But in 10, it was so clear that I could kind of just go back to 7 and do it blindly a little bit. So I think it reminded me of having to learn Spanish and then understanding English a little bit better after learning Spanish. That's how I look at it.
So who's going to the summit? Patrick will be there, I know.
Is there a date announced? I'm kind of nervous about this because there's all these rumors that the Mac Pro is going to be available in September, and you got to think that Final Cut 10.5 is going to drop with the new Mac Pro. But the Creative Summit is traditionally when we get to see the new version of Final Cut Pro.
Right.
So,
here's
the question is, what's the date?
You know it's in September, don't you?
IBC.
IBC.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing.
My guess is we get a drop near IBC for the Mac Pro.
Yeah, but they have to have something. Well, they can still show us something at Final Cut Pro Apple Campus if 10.5 comes out. It'll be new enough that they can still show us something new. But here's the thing. The original, because I went online and I clicked the date, notify me, and it said coming in September, but I think that might be gone now. I think I've read that.
It is.
Yeah.
So maybe that was just a mistake.
Yeah, it's just weird that it was up and then they scrubbed it, and so now I don't know. But personally, I'm always excited about a Creative Summit where Final Cut drops like the day before, the day of.
Exactly.
And we get to play around with stuff that the rest of the world hasn't got their hands on yet.
Exactly.
That's been fun in the past. Not that they have to do that, but it's been fun.
But that's one of the biggest draws to the Creative Summit, though. The fact that you get that kind of access to Apple and the team.
Okay, so let me read a quote from Jared Land from Red real quick that might shed some light on some stuff. Apple's new hardware will bring a mind-blowing level of performance to Metal accelerated proxy-free R3D workflows in Final Cut Pro 10 that editors truly have never seen before. We are very excited to bring a Metal optimized version of R3D in September. Jared Land, President, Red Digital Cinema. So my question is, if they are launching a new version of R3D in September that's optimized for Final Cut Pro 10 and for the Mac Pro, wouldn't it be logical for those to be for September to be the launch date for whatever is coming?
Yeah.
And I don't know that that's the case. It's just there seem to be a few things that point toward that.
Yep. And then the question is, when's the Creative Summit?
Well, that's always
September?
a question.
I hope not.
No. It's
we don't have time to. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, I need to make plans. I don't know.
Well, as usual, they're juggling multiple schedules. Apple's schedule, the Juniper schedule, FMC schedule. And they have to get things
schedule.
Absolutely.
Reopening.
Hey, I found a burger place up there. There was you had to walk a couple blocks, but it's a good burger place.
Yeah, well, that's
nice. Yeah. It's really good. I ate there. I really enjoyed it. But so, like I said, one of the things about this Creative Summit is access to Apple and having a new version of Final Cut Pro. I don't know how that's going to coincide this year. Now, here's the thing. It's no sense in Apple's not going to artificially hold the release of Final Cut Pro 10 and the Mac Pro until the Creative Summit. That wouldn't make any sense.
No,
because that's only a few hundred people.
I think it was I can't remember who said this the best. Maybe it's Chris Fenwick, but basically or maybe Mike Mansdorf, I can't remember, but they'll release it when it's ready. I think that's the Apple thing. When it's ready, it'll be out.
Yes.
So,
Well, it would be Murphy's Law that it happens in September during my first vacation since 1989. That would not be good.
That's probably when it'll happen, sir.
Of course, it's my fault.
So
Yeah.
Braden Storrs asked, how long did Final Cut Pro 1 to 7 run? I think it was 2000 to 2011, right?
Did
it come out in
1999, right?
Was it just previewed in 1999 or did it come out in 1999? I thought it came out in 2000.
I know it showed it in NAB in 1999. I thought that's
right. But I don't think it came out. I'm not positive, but
the 99-2000 range sounds right. I don't know, man. I was in middle school.
I have that. I guess we all have the first box, don't we? I have the first box in my garage.
Yeah. Yes.
I do not have the first box. I was not into video at the time. I was into jamming
playing
out
drums.
on.
Right.
That's right. I was a drummer.
That's cool.
Jamming out on sweet old set of Pearl Ludwigs.
Do you miss that?
No, we've got a drum set in the second building here at LumaForge, so I go over there and jam out on the drums.
Now Patrick
for
jams
mental
out
breaks
with
during the
ZZ
day.
Top songs.
That's right, just ZZ Top. That's why the beard actually is
Exactly.
my huge fandom for ZZ. Who's ZZ Top?
Exactly.
No, please.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Billy Gibbons. I don't listen to a lot of their music though, so I'm not actually familiar with their discography. Anyway, Brad was probably playing with Final Cut back at version 1-ish, right?
The original Final Cut?
Yeah.
The first version I got my hands on was in high school, and it was 2.0. And so that was 2001.
Okay.
And then I first really started using it with version 3, or maybe it was like a dot update of version 3. It was whenever they got, I think they were finally getting 24p support before version 4. And the DVX 100, I did a short film with that back in 2003.
Okay.
So that was my early days. Prior to that, I used Premiere versions 4 through 6. And at an internship I had, they had two Media Composer machines. One was a newer one that they used for primarily editing, and then they had an older one that only let you do 2 tracks of video and 4 tracks of audio. And they used that as an ingest machine, and they let me cut my short films on it. So in order to add more audio tracks or video tracks, I would have to do video mix downs or audio mix downs to accommodate the 2 video track and 4 audio track limitation.
Oh boy.
So that was in 2001 as well. But the cool thing about that is going from a PC with Premiere 4 or 5 and having it be really buggy and not play back video and crash constantly to a rock solid Avid was amazing. And then when they told me that their new Avid was one they didn't even own, they rented it, the production company, and it cost $80,000. I was like, well, okay, what do I do? And then a friend came over in 2002 with his iBook running, or G3 iBook running Final Cut Pro 3. And I was like, yep, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to get Final Cut.
Yep.
It worked just as well as what I saw on the Avid, but it was the fraction of the cost.
It used to take 3 guys to load the Avid into my office with all the furniture that it needed, and it was $5,000 a week to rent.
Was that Philip, Greg, and Bill? Were those the 3?
No. But when Final Cut first came out, I had an editor working full time for me who was working on the Avid, and I told him about Final Cut, and I had bought it, and I had started using it, and I said, you really need to learn how to use this. He said, I'm an Avid editor. I'm never going to use that. And, fade out, fade back in. A few years ago, he said, you saved my life because I knew how to work in other NLEs, and I've worked consistently for years because of that. Wow. So Final Cut's given a lot of people a living, help them to make a living.
You know, when I was a carpenter, I never said I'm an Estwing carpenter. That's
There
a
you
brand.
go.
That's a brand of a hammer. I never said that. I never said I'm a DeWalt carpenter, the brand of a sliding saw that I use. So I never said I'm a Final Cut Pro editor that I know of. You know, I'm an editor that uses Final Cut Pro, but so when I started, I was at a local community college up here. I did deck-to-deck editing at a local community cable TV station. Then I said, well, let me see what this nonlinear stuff, this is like in the late 90s. So I did the same as Brad. I got Premiere on a PC, and boy, it was terrible. I mean, I was fascinated that I could do those things compared to the old, what were those old controllers? I forget what they were. They had a card in them. Yeah, exactly.
Put multiple decks together. Yeah,
Yes.
we had those at high school as well. So you could, you had the video mixer boards, and then
Yes.
you
yes.
always knew that somebody was a little too excited when they would use every transition on the board to go from A to B.
What was the one with the
Every
dancing
time.
lady? The dancing lady transition? The Hawaiian. Yeah, I never used
Man.
that one.
We should bust out some. There's got to be some old video mixer boards lying around. I always thought it'd be funny to like do a promo video for a video production company, but use like all the old like beta cams and like video decks and everything, and put it up on YouTube. Like, this is the real services we're providing in 2019.
Okay,
You've
here's
got
one.
beta
Brad.
SP, man.
Here's one for you, Brad. Last night we were talking about ingesting and exporting, and Philip piped up and said, "What goes in Vegas stays in Vegas."
Vegas.
You can put that in your video.
Oh, that sounds right. That sounds right.
Oh man, that would be a good LumaForge workflow commercial for April Fools.
You should do
It's
that.
all the old.
Patrick,
Jellyfish
edge.
now supports Windows Movie Maker.
are
So
you cutting those? I'm sorry, Richard. I'm interrupting you. I just
No,
was
go-
wondering if
go
Patrick's
ahead.
cutting those videos for LumaForge. I love what you guys are doing.
Oh, thank you. It's a mix of me and actually the director of the feature film I'm working on.
Oh,
What's funny is like he'll edit for me during the day, and then I edit for him during the night. So
there you go.
he does.
Yeah.
He does. I don't want to edit myself, and he doesn't want to edit his own feature. So we just kind of trade off back and forth. But yeah, it's a mix of me and him. So I do about half, and he does about half.
And between the two of you guys, you get no sleep.
Absolutely.
Right now, I may be a little zony right now because it was a late night last night and the night before that and some of the nights before that and other of the nights before that too.
oh
So Patrick,
God.
how many Mac Pros are you guys getting? Is LumaForge getting?
How many Mac Pros are we getting?
Yeah.
As far as I know, before the end of 2020 or the end of 2019, before 2020, maybe none.
What? You have to get at least one.
I mean, look, man, I want one, but
Right.
you know, it's almost as expensive as a jellyfish. Like,
Right. Well, that's why I said you made the BFJ
we
to
all know
match the Mac
those
Pro.
are overpriced. Just kidding.
made the BFJ so that we could afford the Mac Pro.
No, you made the BFJ to compete with the Mac Pro, to connect into it, so you have this great, gigantic. Can you imagine when somebody comes in with rack mounts a bunch of those into a server room? Those Mac Pros.
The Mac Pros, the rack mountable Mac Pros.
Yeah.
At
I can't
40 pounds
imagine
a
that-
piece, it's going to go through the floor.
Yeah, I think the people who are doing Mac Minis in the thousands right now might start their Mac Pro wall.
Right.
I would not want to do a Mac Pro wall because I want it in the room with me so I can stare at the case grater holes.
Sure. So how much is that afterburner card going to cost? Going to be thousands?
An arm and my leg.
Because they said the Red Rocket is like 6,700 to 3,000, something comparable to it.
I don't think it's going to be as expensive as the Red Rocket.
I hope
can't
not.
imagine it.
We can't deal with any more Mac Pro flashback, feedback from people.
Mhm.
Everything is, they're criticizing everything left and right, blah, 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 whatever.
I think Alex Gollner has an interesting article about that he wrote around NAB about the Mac Pro, which is that the most important feature moving forward will be how not the specs and not the cost, but how much Apple's willing to support the pro market, and probably the best way for Apple to do that is through having third parties building up that ecosystem again, where you can have resellers and people that are specifically tasked to, a pro workflow company like LumaForge, for example, that can resell Mac Pros and support clients, because I don't think Apple really has the infrastructure to make it worth their time to support that niche market in that kind of way that maybe HP does with their workstations, or Avid definitely does with their clients.
Yet how much does Avid charge?
I know of a local organization here that pays $500,000 a year for Avid support.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. I mean, Apple can do that.
Well, but I don't. I think, I don't think so.
I'm not saying they will.
If you look at Avid, if you look at Avid's business, what is it, $400 million a year or something like that.
Right.
And there's a very thin profit margin. It's not really worth it for them to support that. But if Avid had a program and a certification way to certify companies like maybe LumaForge and others that could resell their computers and offer that support for those clients, like broadcasters like VGTV, then I think the Mac Pro will be a huge hit with those people and those organizations.
I think it's going to be a huge hit. I mean, people wanted a professional Mac Pro. When it came out, a lot of the organizations that wanted it are happy. Some people said, "Whoa, that's too pro. Too many PCIe slots. We can't have that. It's too many. It costs too much."
It's the Mac hobbyists and look, I don't need a Mac Pro to get my work done. So if you need it, then it's worth it, and if you don't, then there's other machines that are great.
Right. The iMac Pro is fantastic. Go ahead.
The other question around the Mac Pro, and there are arguments for and against this idea, but look, you get a baseline Mac Pro. As the years go on, you can upgrade, and
exactly
as you're starting to have more difficult workflows, then you add whatever you need, and you don't get stuck with having to buy an entirely new machine if you need a new GPU or you need a new internal storage, right? There are ways that you can speed up your Mac as time goes along. So you don't have to buy the $30,000 version up front to then be able to get that amount of power over time. So by the time you are working on 8K RAW or 16K proxies, because we're now at 32 or 64K, whatever. Look, by the time you need that processing power, you can get it. And the idea is you're not buying one machine for 2 or 3 years, or one machine that you wish you had the money to afford a replacement after 5 years. You're getting a machine that you hold on to 7 to 10 years and upgrade as you go. And
absolutely.
Yeah, there are people that are like, yes, but the motherboard isn't, made for all of the latest and greatest technology. Well, okay, fine. Yeah, from a tech standpoint, there are going to be things that are going to change and go beyond what it is capable of. But the post houses, there are post houses that still to this day have the old cheese graters, and they've just gone in and introduced some of the newer NVIDIA GPUs and been able to accomplish a whole lot.
Well, not only that, Patrick, but why can't they upgrade the motherboard at some point if they wanted to?
That's a great question. We've not heard anything about the motherboard being swappable, but that would
I'm
be
just saying it's possible.
They kind of alluded to the idea that everything is replaceable in the way it's built. So maybe that would include that. I've always asked the question, if you get to the point where you're replacing the logic board or motherboard or whatever, then you're basically just starting over with the computer.
No, that's true, but it might not save you that much, but it's still possible. But I mean, the other thing is, there'll be a market. I'm going to get one, just a base one. I'm going to go above the 8-core, though. I'm going to get to 12-core, 16-core.
Yeah, and I think the 12 and 16 are probably the sweet spot.
And I'm going to figure on upgrading everything as I need. If and when do I need the afterburner card? No, don't need that. Not if it's, thousands of dollars. I don't need the Pro Display. Don't need it.
I do.
I
I'll probably.
do.
I might buy the Pro Display before
Before
Mac
the Mac
Pro.
Pro.
Just because it could be used as a production monitor and for HDR workflows.
Oh my
They
gosh!
showed-
Yeah, the HDR workflow with that thing is insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, and combine that with the little Blackmagic unit that they announced, then you can do on-set monitoring in HDR. That would be fantastic. So that might be something I may invest in before the Mac Pro itself.
Well, that's interesting.
So
Yeah.
We're all going to be taking out second mortgages so we can buy all the new cameras.
Well, I
and the
got
new Mac Pro.
I'm just gonna bill my clients higher.
Well-
That's assuming we all have mortgages to begin with. I can't afford a
I-
mortgage.
well,
I have a
this-
mortgage. I couldn't
I have
afford a
mortgage,
mortgage
too.
in California.
Nope.
I have a
Me
mortgage.
neither. In Oklahoma or Utah, I might be able to have a house, but nope.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll take out a mortgage just for the Mac Pro. Is that?
Oh,
Yeah.
no,
Well, there you
That'll
go.
work.
There you
You
go.
want to hear something really stupid? Probably. This is how nerdy I am. I'm actually looking for a house right now. And I had a conversation with myself about, well, maybe I should take part of that down payment money and buy some new equipment and then get a smaller house. Is that great? That's ridiculous.
We'll just
when
get
you
a
think
bigger
about
house and rent one of the rooms out for a while to make up the
Yeah.
difference.
Oh,
Oh
I don't know.
goodness.
I
Can
don't
Or
you
know.
buy the new
imagine-
gear and then put it on kit split and make money to pay toward your mortgage, so you're not having to work as much. There you go.
There you go. No.
Oh man.
Well, guys, I need to head out personally.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's been great talking to you. Happy birthday, Final Cut.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Happy birthday, Final Cut Pro, especially, let me see where that is. The
Happy
team,
birthday,
once again.
Final Cut. Happy birthday.
Absolutely. I want to thank the team, especially those guys and gals are the hardest working people in Apple Final Cut Pro show business.
Yeah,
Tony Gallardo just logged on and said, howdy, y'all.
Hey.
Tony's going to get a couple of Mac
Tony.
Pros, isn't he? He's
Sure.
got room in his
He's
studio.
got to. He's got to.
Well,
He's
I'm
got
going to
that
get
jellyfish. He needs to power that anyway.
I'm going to get one, but maybe not till 2020 after I'm going to see the reviews and stuff, but I'm not going to get, and I just want to get one and I'll get it and use it for Logic Pro and use it for Final Cut. And I lease my studio out sometimes without me being involved. And that'll be a selling point. You can do 4K and 8K here as a Mac Pro. So
Yeah, there you go.
absolutely.
Guys, thank you so
Bye.
much.
Richard,
All
thank you for putting this together.
Absolutely. And we will, there is Patrick disappearing. And we'll be back as usual. And until the next time, you guys, thank you for showing up, Brad
Yeah.
and Serena. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Gonna go cut a movie.
There you go.
All
Thanks a
right.
lot, guys. We'll talk to everybody
All right.
later.
We'll see you.
Bye.